Hello and welcome to CDO Magazine interview series. I am Denise Collison with SHI International, and we are partnering with CDO Magazine, MIT, CDOIQ, and the International Society of Chief Data Officers in a series of interviews. Today, I have the pleasure of talking with Benjamin Wiles, who is the CDO at Clemson University. Welcome, Ben.
Hey, Denise, it's great to meet you. And yeah, thanks for having me. I look forward to it.
So excited to have you. I think it's such an exciting time to be talking about really anything in the higher education space. So I can't wait to get your take on a couple of these hot topics, and really excited to get to know you a little bit more. And so to that end, I'd love if you would just start with telling us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I think it'll frame some of the way I see, data and analytics, but I'm, by training, a mathematician and educational psychologist. So my first professional role in higher ed was as assistant head of the Department of Mathematics at Purdue University. And because of its size and complexity, I became more and more interested in the maybe business analytics involved in running academic enterprises. And through a series of opportunities, I ended up building out our first university-wide business analytics group at Purdue, which ended up having around 10 data science professionals and what we call assessment professionals who were centrally managed, but were supporting various lines of business from very administrative focuses to very academic focuses. And I've been here at Clemson for 5 years, where I remain an educator and teach statistics in the business school here. But professionally speaking, really just work to coordinate the many perspectives and initiatives that a large public research intensive university has on data strategy, governance, and management. More than anything, just trying to create the conditions for success across the institution to help people achieve their goals. So
that's cool. Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to come back and ask you a question about something you just said in a minute, but just to get a little bit more sense of who you are, do you want to share with us what you're binge watching, if anything? Are you binge watching anything good today? Now is weekend coming up. What's on your list?
Yeah, so I decided to start running, and I'm going to run the marathon up in Raleigh in a couple of months, my first one. And so that means there's a treadmill in my basement. And so binge watching has become part of my life, but I'm about to finish up Stranger Things and looking forward to inspecting the Lord of the Rings series on Amazon.
I think you're going to have a lot of listeners who are clapping about Stranger Things right now. I finished that up a couple of weeks ago myself. And congrats on running your first marathon. Good luck on that.
Yeah, better good luck than congrats.
So, well, you know what? Congrats just for trying. I ran a marathon, and it takes a lot of commitment just to try and train. Yes, I ran the Disney marathon. Yep, not an easy task. So congrats on getting motivated enough to start.
It's you. You too.
So I want to ask a question about something you just said about your background. I think it's an interesting coming together of the educational aspect and the actual university aspect of what the university needs in terms of a data strategy and a data roadmap and plans. And just it's a unique perspective that you have being on both sides. So I'm just curious to know, how do you think that makes your job different than, say, the chief data officer of a commercial organization where there's really not an academic component? How do you blend those two things together well?
Yeah, it's something that I think would catch people off guard if they came to a large public institution. And higher ed gets criticized, especially large. We're a land grant university, so we were established to serve the people of South Carolina, and we do so very well. But oftentimes gets criticized for being everything to everyone. We do so many different things. I tell people that we have really every sector of the economy that we're running here within the university. Right. And so it's not as reasonable, and our outcomes are not exactly, finances are obviously very important in efficiency and effectiveness of our programs, but it's not profit driven. There aren't those kind of hard KPIs when we think about the outcomes that people want. Also, the faculty themselves, which are the lifeblood of the institution, are, these CEOs in some ways are entrepreneurs of one person who are in charge of their careers. And it's very important that they have the autonomy and leeway to do that. So you have to be accommodating. On the administrative side, there can be some culture gaps. So you've got to code switch a little bit, and if you can, then that's helpful. So it's fun. I don't know if I'd work anywhere else but in education, but I'm certainly interested in other things too. But
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I've done quite a few of these interviews, but that's the first time I've heard anyone really kind of mention that that thought about, oh, you gotta go between these two, thought processes. You gotta go between being an educator and working with educators and administrators and working with administrators. It's just a really unique. So thank you for sharing that with us. So we're going to talk a little bit about change management today. And we know it's critical. Change management, any change you're going to make in any organization, change management is critical to its success. So let's talk about change management as a critical component of any organizations, in your case, specifically a higher education institution, data strategy. Before we dig in though, because change management is such a broad term, do you want to maybe define it from your perspective? Like when someone says change management to you, what do you think about? What are the things that are involved with that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So in a data and analytics organization, when we talk about change, most often, in my experience, we're talking about improving some ability to execute or acquiring some new ability that we couldn't do before. Mm-hmm. So it's important to me to unpack then what we mean by ability and have a model for that. So I'm going to borrow some of the stuff from my academic background here, but we think about ability as an individual, you or me, and both you and I have values, knowledge, experiences, other characteristics. You could just name off as many as you wish. And we are also situated in some kind of context, right? Some environment, and it also has some characteristics too. Within that environment, we have some goals and objectives. And the way we like to think about ability is if there's alignment between my characteristics, my environment, and my goals, then by definition, I'm high ability. And I could change any three of those components and make it out of alignment. And all of a sudden, I didn't change. My goals didn't change. My environment did. I am no longer high ability. Mm-hmm. And that has some serious implications. So when you think about change management now, we don't usually think about exactly the individual. We should a little bit more. But even if you think about your DNA teams or however they're distributed, their characteristics and their environment, maybe their environment you're saying is the organization itself. If you don't have alignment between those three things, you're not going to be able to improve your ability to execute or acquire new abilities. So each of those requires change management, I guess I would say.
That's a really interesting. I'm feeling like I should pick my pen up and start taking notes, just FYI, as a leader of an organization who, obviously goes through some change. So thank you for sharing that. I think that's a good level set to the conversation that we're going to have. We know that digital transformation hinges on an organization's ability to embrace change. Specifically, we have users who have been doing things one way for a long time. They feel really good and comfortable about that. And then here we come with this digital transformation projects. Forbes Insights and a PMI survey of more than 500 executives. They found 85% of respondents say change management is critical to their success in these times of disruption. Yet, like I said, we know humans are change resistant. And there's a good deal of fear and concern about employees, the amount of change and the pace of change and what that means for their future jobs. So first question, how do you address fear and concern and encourage employees to embrace change?
So first off, I'd say emotions like fear and others are natural and occur in predictable ways. So we know that. And that's why, you need to proactively manage for them. I would add that humans have, we have physiological needs for food and certain climate conditions, and that we kind of proactively seek those things out. And if those aren't met, we don't thrive as well as we could. And it turns out that humans also have basic psychological needs too. And specifically, those have been defined, in the literature for decades and applied within organizational psychology. And those needs are a need for autonomy. Those needs include a need to feel competent in what you're doing. And the third one that has been identified is a need for relatedness or a sense of belonging.
Mhm.
So people will proactively seek out environments that satisfy their physiological needs. They will also do so for their psychological needs. And if your change, or you don't communicate how your change supports, maybe your change actively thwarts their needs, decades of research and practice will tell us that people will adopt maladaptive strategies to compensate, to make sure their psychological needs are met. It's what humans do.
Yep.
So if you create autonomy supported structures that enhance individuals' sense of competence and relatedness in your change initiatives, then a lot of the work we say to embrace change will have been done for you, I think, and you'll
Mhm.
have the wind at your back, so to speak,
Yeah.
in doing so. So, humanizing your change, I guess, is what I would say.
Thank you so much for sharing all of your expertise and your thoughts and perspectives with us. Really great conversation. And for everyone listening, please visit cdomagazine.tech for additional interviews.